seem to go in another direction when you think you got it nailed down. But
that's right. Then it'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
But see, this energy manipulation could explain so much of the phenomena that's in the literature, such as these people being able to pass through walls, missing time. Again, the fact that electrical devices cease to function when this energy field is present, and they are manipulating energy, is what they're doing. And this is what the people within our military-industrial complex and within the intelligence community, they desperately want to get their hands on this technology, and they don't want to give it to their perceived enemies, so they cannot make it public.
That's quite a dilemma there, because it could be used, I guess, in some sense. One would suggest that if such technology were available, that they would be using it in wars and so forth.
Absolutely.
But that might not then be the reason for why they are, why they have developed the technology. Because if they're, as you say, if they're all the same guys at the top, the most important thing, I guess, is to have us, the rest of humanity, fighting amongst ourselves and having these wars with old technology, so to speak, and they can fly around in their UFOs doing their thing.
Right. And I'll tell you what I feel like is the reason for the secrecy about UFOs, and of course that's been led by the United States. The United States has applied pressure to many other countries not to talk about UFOs. They have not been entirely successful. Mexico has been at the forefront of being very open and public about the UFOs, and their defense minister went on television a few years ago, showed camera film from some fighter interceptors and said they were chasing UFOs. The French, of course, came out with their Cometa report a few years ago, and although they were quick to say this was not an official government report, nevertheless, the people involved in that study were past and present members of the French government, and they said that the UFOs are real and that they represent devices coming from somewhere else and being guided by non-human intelligences. So other nations have been more forthcoming than the United States. And I think the reason for this secrecy is that we're back to these secret societies and to these wealthy elites that want to maintain their power and control over the rest of humanity. And they have this power and control thanks to their wealth, and their wealth is derived from their monopolies over energy, transportation, pharmaceuticals, etc. And so I don't think they really care if we know that there are, say, aliens out there. They don't care.
Yeah.
What they care about is if we know there are aliens out there, then we know for certain that there's alternative technologies out there which might then threaten their monopolies.
So, I mean, do you consider at all that there actually might be aliens in that sense behind let's say the structure, or when the first secret societies became when they spread throughout the world, that right at the top, I guess, of the pyramid, that there might be an alien race or some we could be talking still about a rogue network, but of non-humans. Well,
now you're talking very closely now, sounding like David Icke.
Yeah.
That these reptilians are trying to control us.
Yeah.
I'll say, I have hard enough problem trying to convince people that 9/11 was an inside job and that the war on terror is basically a sham.
Yeah.
And I have enough sense of public relations that I don't think I'm going to win friends and influence a lot of people by publicly calling the Queen Mother of England a 200-year-old reptilian cannibal.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But in the same breath, I have to say that I cannot categorically deny all that, because when you track back the families and the bloodlines, you find that the people who are now trying to bring us into the New World Order belong to these secret societies such as the Council on Foreign Relations, Royal Institute of International Affairs, the Bilderbergers, which involve a lot of the nobility of Europe. And you find that these people all track to older secret societies, such as the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, and all of that stemmed from the world's first Society, the Knights Templar,
Yeah,
who
exactly.
has been well documented as having gained secret knowledge from their excavations under the old Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem during the First Crusade.
Yeah.
And all of that wealth, that treasure, which was not only gold and silver and precious stones, but also knowledge in the form of tablets and scrolls and ancient writings that predated Greece and Egypt and go back to the Sumerians and even back perhaps past that, then all of a sudden you can see that there is a linkage that brings from the ancient past right up to the very present.
Exactly. And so do you think that if you want to speculate, what kind of knowledge do you think that they were able to extract from under the Temple Mount?
Well, for example, what we are now learning is the secrets of the monatomic elements. Okay, these are single atom elements that are found in all heavy metals, including gold, silver, the platinum metals, and they have found that through a heating process, these can be reduced to a fine white powder. And this white powder, when it's placed on a weighing pan, a scale, the pan actually weighs less than it did before you put the powder in it, which means it has anti-gravity properties that can be transmitted outside of itself. So all of a sudden we begin to realize maybe that, for example, maybe that's how they were able to move those huge multi-ton stones that make up the pyramid, that make up the big, huge edifice at Baalbek.
Yeah.
So we find that I think is getting to some of the secrets of this ancient technology.
Yeah, so the prize here again could be to utilize this kind of technology or develop it and then bring it into play again and build this, kind of this global, I guess, empire with, that might more closely resemble the idea, at least, of what the collective humanity has regarding, a more ancient civilizations, like, for example, Atlantis that you mentioned earlier.
Right, exactly, and but like I said, if this energy manipulation, and if this comes down to what is now being studied scientifically here in the United States, which they call zero-point energy.
Yeah.
In other words, drawing energy from even the vacuum of outer space.
Yeah.
And again, at the atomic and subatomic level, if they could make that practical, then you're talking about limitless free energy.
Yeah.
All right. Now, would the people who control us through their monopoly of gas and oil and petroleum products, do they want us having free and limitless energy?
Nope.
I think not.
Unfortunately, not. No. So I mean, what does it take to end this? I mean, this era that we are basically in at the moment, because it seems to, as we've been saying, we're moving more and more closely to where we have less and less freedom and all this stuff. But in some sense, it almost feels like there are a number of other things like the technology, as you just mentioned, that actually would help to liberate humanity. So I mean, we are at
that technology is being suppressed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it seems like we are at.
So what do we do about it?
Yeah.
Well, number one, I'm a journalist. Okay, I'm not a activist. I'm not a revolutionary. I can't tell people what to do. But what I will say, and the thing we have to do, is to educate ourselves, and then educate our fellows. Because only once we understand what is truly going on in the world, and what the possibilities are, and what the potential is, then, and only then, can we make decisions on what we need to do to bring about a more peaceful and loving world.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that the knowledge, of course, and also to get the curiosity back to and just to research these kinds of subjects and know that there are so much more to the world and to reality, basically, than we're being told. It feels like our creative nature is being taken away from us, and we're becoming more and more closed-minded, so to speak. Do you agree?
Right. Some years ago there were people, forward thinkers, who were writing that we are going back into another dark age.
Yeah.
Okay, and I thought, well, that's ridiculous. Our educational systems are the height. We know more today than we did 100 years ago, and we knew more 100 years ago than the 100 years before that. And, how can they say this? And yet, when I look around me and I see the absolute vacuum that television has become, and everybody's distracted with sports and soap operas and game shows, and nobody is thinking anymore about what's going on. For example, one of the reasons I got into journalism was because it did not require a lot of math, a lot of mathematics, because I've never been very good with numbers, and I think that's because I'm a people person. I want to know, how does it feel and what does it mean for everybody. I don't really care what A or B means or a bunch of set of numbers.
Yeah.
But yet, for that, I got a very good education, and when I was a young man, I worked as a checker one time in a grocery store, and I could actually make change in my head, because this was before the day of the computer. But now, just yesterday, I bought a meal, and the bill was like $6.10, and I handed the girl a $10 bill, a dollar bill, and 10 cents. Well, I should get, then that way I get a $5 bill back, and I don't have a bunch of change or a bunch of ones. She couldn't handle it. She didn't understand what was going on. She could not even calculate the change in her head. She had to finally put it into the computer cash register that told her that I got $5 back. Okay?
Yeah.
So, yes, we are being dumbed down.
Yeah.
And we are being smothered with inconsequential information to keep us from focusing on what's real and meaningful.
Absolutely. So I have a few other points I'd like to just kind of throw out at you here and get your take on it. I know I read your book Alien Agenda. I guess it's about 3 years ago now, but you talk in there about the moon, because I had a few different articles on my site a while back regarding the idea that the moon might be an alien artifact, so to speak.
Right.
And
a natural object.
Exactly. What's your? Do you want to talk a little bit about that, the moon?
Oh yeah, that I've had more comment on that first chapter in Alien Agenda about the moon than probably anything else in that book, because again, everybody thinks they know everything there is to know about the moon. Well, it's just a dead world. There's nothing up there. There's no atmosphere, no water, no nothing, and yet we're finding out all the time bits and pieces of information keep dribbling out, and we find out they have found water on the moon. There is a thin atmosphere on the moon. There is a magnetic energy field around the moon. The moon creaks at certain times of the month when it's closest to the Earth, as though some plate's loose somewhere and shifting. They've seen water sprays spread across the surface of the moon. They've seen strange monuments and artifacts on the surface of the moon that they can't explain, including one that's almost a mile high. It is almost like a needle standing up or an obelisk. And yet we're basically told, don't worry about the moon. It's interesting. The moon, on one of the occasions when they dropped one of the landers back onto the moon, NASA announced that the moon reverberated for like 6 hours. As they themselves said, it almost rang like a bell, which indicates that it might be hollow. Okay? And we do know that the more dense matter is on the surface of the moon, and you go down through the surface, it gets softer and softer. In fact, I had a very interesting conversation one time with Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth astronaut to walk on the moon.